Close your eyes. Imagine standing in the Egyptian desert, 3,000 years before the Great Pyramid ever existed. The ground beneath your feet is hollow. Below you, stretching into absolute darkness, lies a tunnel system so vast, so perfectly carved, that modern engineers still cannot explain how it was built. 5.7 kilometers of underground corridors, sealed chambers, 40,000 stone vessels, and not a single answer about what any of it means. What if Egypt's greatest secret isn't the Great Pyramid at Giza? What if the real mystery has been sitting beneath the sands of Saqqara this entire time? Who carved these tunnels before Egypt had pharaohs? Why were 40,000 stone vessels placed underground and then sealed forever with no explanation? Why does the underground complex align with star patterns that Egyptologists admit they never expected to find beneath this specific site? And why have certain sealed chambers inside this complex been off-limits to independent researchers for decades, protected by layers of bureaucratic restriction? These are the questions Egypt's archaeology establishment has never fully answered. Tonight, we go underground, and we find out why. If you love uncovering history's greatest secrets, secrets they never put in your textbooks, subscribe right now. New mysteries drop every single week. Chapter 1. The Pyramid Above. Most people have never heard of Saqqara, but 4,600 years ago, this was the most important place on Earth. Saqqara sits 20 miles south of modern Cairo, on the edge of the Sahara Desert. It was ancient Egypt's first and greatest royal necropolis. This is where Egypt's story truly begins, not at Giza, not with Tutankhamun, but here, in the dust of Saqqara, where civilization first reached toward the sky. The Pyramid of Djoser was built around 2650 BCE, making it the oldest large-scale stone structure ever constructed anywhere on the face of this earth. It wasn't built smooth like later pyramids. It rose in 6 massive stepped layers, like a staircase designed for a god to descend from the heavens above. The man who designed it was named Imhotep. He was not just an architect. He was a physician, a high priest, a scholar, history's first recorded genius. Imhotep was so revered that centuries after his death, the Egyptians made him a god. The Greeks later identified him with their own god of medicine, Asclepius. But Imhotep didn't just build a pyramid. He built something far stranger, far more ambitious, something that has puzzled every archaeologist who has ever descended into it. Beneath the Pyramid of Djoser, Imhotep carved a world, an entire underground kingdom that nobody fully understands, even with all the tools of modern science today. Chapter 2. The Underground Kingdom. The moment you descend below the Pyramid of Djoser, the temperature drops, the air becomes ancient, and the scale becomes terrifying. The main burial shaft descends 28 meters straight down into solid bedrock limestone. That's the height of a 9-story building, carved entirely by hand. At the bottom of that shaft, the tunnels begin. Corridor after corridor, branching in every direction, stretching for a total of 5.7 kilometers underground. 5.7 kilometers. That is longer than 50 football fields laid end to end, all carved by hand, all in near-perfect alignment, all built before the wheel was common. The walls of these tunnels are lined with 40,000 blue faience tiles, a brilliant turquoise glaze, recreating the appearance of a royal palace interior underground. Think about that. Someone decided the dead pharaoh needed a palace beneath the earth, a full royal residence, built underground, never to be seen by living human eyes. 3 false doors were carved into the walls at precise locations. In Egyptian belief, false doors allowed the soul to pass between the world of the living and the dead. The engineering precision here is staggering. The corridors maintain near-perfect horizontal level across their entire length, a feat difficult to achieve even with modern surveying equipment. But the tunnels themselves are not even the strangest part of what was discovered down here. The strangest discovery came in the form of 40,000 stone vessels. 40,000 individual stone containers, bowls, jars, platters, and dishes carved from some of the hardest stones on Earth: diorite, schist, alabaster, obsidian, and granite. Chapter 3. The 40,000 Vessels. Archaeologist Jean-Philippe Lauer spent 50 years excavating Saqqara. In the tunnels, he found something that shook him to his core. 40,000 stone vessels stacked in underground galleries, many of them smashed, many still intact. Some were inscribed with the names of pharaohs who lived long before Djoser, names like Den, Djer, Kwa'a, kings from the first dynasty, rulers who lived 300 to 500 years before the Pyramid of Djoser was even conceived. Why would Djoser's builders collect the royal vessels of rulers who died 5 centuries earlier and store them underground beneath his pyramid? Nobody has a satisfying answer. Some Egyptologists suggest they were gathered as sacred heirlooms, a ritual collection of royal power from across Egypt's earliest history, concentrated in one sacred underground space. But here is what makes this truly extraordinary. Many of these vessels are carved from diorite, one of the hardest stones on Earth, harder than iron and almost as hard as steel. Carving diorite with copper tools, the only metal ancient Egyptians supposedly had, would be extraordinarily difficult. Some of these bowls are paper-thin and perfectly symmetrical. Modern engineers who have examined these vessels say replicating their precision using only copper tools and abrasive sand would require thousands of man-hours per single vessel. 40,000 of them. The math becomes impossible. The time required would exceed the entire lifespan of the civilization that supposedly made them. Something does not add up. Were these vessels made by an earlier, more technologically capable civilization? Were they inherited artifacts from a world that no longer existed when Djoser sat on the throne? Chapter 4. The Star Alignments. In 2020, a team of independent researchers published a paper that sent shockwaves through the Egyptology community worldwide. They had discovered that the underground corridors beneath the Pyramid of Djoser align with startling precision to the rising point of specific stars in ancient Egyptian astronomy. Specifically, the main axis of the underground complex points toward the circumpolar stars, stars that never set below the horizon, which the Egyptians called the imperishable ones. In Egyptian religion, the pharaoh's soul after death was meant to join these stars, to become imperishable, to circle the sky forever, never dying, never setting, never ending. The underground palace wasn't just a tomb, it was a launch point, a cosmological machine designed to project the pharaoh's soul directly into the eternal stars above. But the alignments don't stop there. Researchers found that certain sealed shafts within the complex point toward star positions that correspond to dates thousands of years before Djoser's reign. This is the detail that Egyptologists struggle to explain. Why would a pyramid built in 2650 BCE contain astronomical alignments pointing to a sky configuration from 10,000 BCE? Either the builders made a mathematical error on a scale that defies belief, or these alignments were inherited from an older source, a source that predates known Egyptian civilization entirely. This is the question that haunts every serious researcher who has spent time in these tunnels. Something here is older than what we are officially being told. Chapter 5. The Sealed Chambers. Here is where the story becomes not just mysterious, but deliberately controversial in a way that demands serious attention and serious questions. Within the tunnel network beneath Saqqara, there are chambers that remain sealed. Not sealed by ancient builders, sealed by modern Egyptian antiquities authorities. Locked, off-limits, restricted. Independent researchers and journalists who have requested access to these sealed sections have been denied. The Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities cites preservation concerns as the official reason. Preservation is a legitimate concern. Ancient sites are fragile, but several Egyptologists who have reviewed the situation say the specific chambers being restricted are of extraordinary historical significance. In 2021, ground-penetrating radar surveys conducted by an Italian research team revealed large void spaces beneath the Saqqara Plateau that have not yet been excavated or officially acknowledged. Large underground voids in a location already known to contain 5.7 kilometers of tunnels connected to what other chambers? Leading to what other discoveries? Nobody is saying. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is documented science. The radar data exists. The research papers exist. The question of what lies in those voids remains officially unanswered. In the history of archaeology, sealed chambers have revealed world-changing discoveries. Tutankhamun's tomb, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Terracotta Army. What might be sealed beneath Saqqara? Some researchers have suggested the voids could contain a library of ancient texts, scrolls or inscribed tablets predating any known Egyptian writing by thousands of years. Others believe the voids may contain the actual burial goods of pre-dynastic rulers, kings whose names we don't know, whose faces we've never seen, whose story has never been told. Chapter 6. Imhotep's Impossible Knowledge. To understand Saqqara's deepest mystery, we must return to the man who built it, because Imhotep should not have known what he clearly knew. Before Imhotep, Egyptian monuments were built from mud brick, simple, effective, but fragile. In one generation, Imhotep leapt to massive precision stonework with zero recorded experimentation. There is no archaeological record of a learning curve, no trial structures, no failed prototypes. Imhotep appeared and built perfectly on the very first attempt at enormous scale. In every other field of human technology, metallurgy, medicine, agriculture, astronomy, knowledge develops slowly over generations. There are always failed attempts, always a progression. But Egyptian monumental stone architecture appears fully formed, at massive scale, with extraordinary precision, in the lifetime of a single man. History has no parallel for this. Where did Imhotep get this knowledge? Ancient Egyptian texts describe him as one who knew the secrets of the primeval mounds, sacred knowledge inherited from before the flood. The primeval mound in Egyptian cosmology was the first piece of land to rise from the primordial waters at the moment of creation. It was the birthplace of all sacred knowledge. Was this poetic religious language? Or was Imhotep literally describing knowledge he had inherited from a civilization that existed before a catastrophic flood reset human history? This is not fringe thinking. Multiple peer-reviewed papers in the last decade have raised serious questions about knowledge transfer across catastrophic civilizational boundaries in ancient history. The evidence at Saqqara, the impossible precision, the impossible timeline, the star alignments pointing thousands of years backward, all point toward the same uncomfortable possibility. Chapter 7. The Saqqara Bird and Lost Technology. In 1898, archaeologist Khalil Messiha found a small wooden object in a Saqqara tomb. It was labeled Wooden Bird Model and forgotten. In 1969, Egyptian doctor Khalil Messiha's son re-examined the object. He noticed something extraordinary. The object's wings were not shaped like any bird. They were shaped like aircraft wings. The Saqqara bird has a flat, horizontal tail, something no bird possesses. It has a wing profile that generates aerodynamic lift. It behaves in wind tunnels like a functioning glider model. Aeronautical engineers who have tested scale models of the Saqqara bird confirm it generates measurable lift at low speeds. It was not decorative. It was a working aerodynamic prototype. Was this evidence of advanced lost technology? A remnant of knowledge about flight that existed in some earlier civilization? and filtered into Egypt as symbolic or technical artifact? Most Egyptologists reject this interpretation, but they struggle to explain why a supposedly decorative bird model was built with aerodynamically functional wing geometry and a non-bird tail structure. The Saqqara bird is now housed in the Cairo Museum. It sits in a display case. The label still says wooden bird model. The aerodynamic tests are not mentioned anywhere on the plaque. Saqqara keeps producing objects that mainstream archaeology struggles to categorize. Each one, individually, can be explained away. Together, they form a pattern that is very difficult to dismiss. A pattern of knowledge that is too advanced, too precise, too perfect for the timeline we have assigned to it. Something happened at Saqqara that our history books have not captured. Chapter 8. The Serapeum. Half a kilometer from the Pyramid of Djoser, buried under desert sand for centuries, lies one of the most disturbing archaeological sites on Earth. The Serapeum of Saqqara is a network of underground tunnels containing 24 massive granite boxes. Each box weighs between 70 and 100 tons. Each is carved from a single block of granite. These boxes were used to enter the mummified remains of the Apis bulls, sacred animals believed to be the living incarnation of the god Ptah on Earth. But the boxes themselves are what stop every engineer and physicist who examines them dead in their tracks. The precision of their carving is beyond anything known in the ancient world. The interior surfaces of these granite boxes are flat to within 2 one-thousandths of an inch, a tolerance that matches modern precision machining equipment used in aerospace manufacturing today. The lids, each weighing 27 tons, fit their boxes with such precision that a sheet of paper cannot be slid between the lid and the box wall in most places. Engineer and researcher Christopher Dunn spent years analyzing the Serapeum boxes. His conclusion was stark. The precision achieved could not have been produced by hand tools and abrasive powder. The mathematics of material removal required to achieve this tolerance at this scale, in granite, using only copper and stone tools, simply does not work. The numbers do not compute. Yet here they sit, 24 of them, perfectly made, weighing up to 100 tons each, inside tunnels carved through solid limestone in a civilization supposedly using copper chisels. How were they moved into position inside tunnels that are barely wider than the boxes themselves? How were they lowered? How were they carved? Egyptology has no complete answer. Chapter 9. What is being hidden? Let us be precise here. We are not claiming a cover-up by shadowy forces. We are pointing to a documented pattern of institutional hesitation. When the Italian radar team submitted their findings about underground voids to Egyptian authorities in 2021, they were asked to stop further scanning and leave the site. When independent researcher John Anthony West brought geologist Robert Schoch to Saqqara to study the weathering patterns of underground stones, their research access was repeatedly restricted. When filmmaker Patrice Pouillard documented the Serapeum boxes in his film The Revelation of the Pyramids, Egyptian authorities did not facilitate continued independent access to the site. A pattern emerges, not of a single dramatic cover-up, but of institutional inertia, an archaeology establishment deeply uncomfortable with evidence that challenges the official timeline of human history. Because if the timeline is wrong, if there was an advanced civilization before Egypt, then everything we think we know about human development must be reconsidered from the very beginning. That is not a comfortable position for institutions that have built entire careers, entire academic departments, entire national identities on the existing official story of Egyptian history. Chapter 10. The bigger picture. Saqqara does not stand alone. Across the world, ancient sites display the same impossible combination: extraordinary precision, mysterious alignments, and no satisfying official explanation. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, Pumapunku in Bolivia, the underground city of Derinkuyu in Cappadocia. Sites that predate or match Egypt's complexity, but belong to civilizations we've never named. The Younger Dryas impact event, 12,900 years ago, may have destroyed an advanced global civilization, leaving only fragments, artifacts, and architectural shadows for us to find. Saqqara may be the most intact fragment of that lost world, a repository of knowledge from before the flood, encoded in stone, in alignment, in 40,000 impossible vessels underground. If that is true, if even a fraction of that hypothesis is correct, then what lies in those sealed chambers and unexcavated voids beneath Saqqara could rewrite human history entirely. We have walked through 5.7 kilometers of impossible tunnels. We have counted 40,000 vessels carved from the hardest stones on Earth. We have stood before 24 perfect granite boxes. We have seen star alignments pointing thousands of years into the past. We have traced knowledge in Imhotep's hands that should not have existed. We have asked the questions nobody wants to answer. Here is the question we leave with you tonight. If you were given unlimited access to those sealed chambers beneath Saqqara, and you could only ask the stones one single question, what would it be? Tell us in the comments, because the conversation you're about to start is exactly the kind of conversation that keeps these mysteries alive and keeps the pressure on the people who hold the keys. If this video opened your mind even slightly, please like it, share it, and subscribe. Part 2 of Saqqara goes even deeper underground. You are not going to want to miss what comes next.